Good morning, afternoon, or evening, ladies and gentlemen, all in crypto here, and welcome back, guys, for another daily cryptocurrency market update. This is take two. I have already filmed a 17-minute long video, but did not click record. So we're going to take another stab at it. And as always, this is going to be a jam-packed daily market update. We're going to start the video off actually by looking at the DAX, a German stock index. And we're going to look at a number of indexes that all seem to be, whether it be the Japanese Nikkei, whether it be the Dow Jones, the S&P, the FTSE, all seem to be around new all-time highs. In fact, something like the DAX is now setting new all-time highs. And this is very kind of confirming to the backdrop we've got in regards to it being a bullish one. And we're actually going to look at these and take a look at them compared to crypto. And we're going to use the total as a kind of index for the cryptocurrency market, because crypto is rather a lame horse. And there's two ways you can take this. You can either take this as a very negative thing, and there's a lack of interest there, or you can take it as a very positive thing in regards to the stock markets are showing us what's to come and are confirming the kind of environment that I think we are in. And actually, the environment that I think we are in is very contradictory, and we're using the charts to decide that, to what the kind of economists and the kind of headlines are saying. They are in sort of dysphoria. They're in kind of shock right now in regards to what the stock market is doing, because it doesn't make any sense. And this is why economists make the worst investors. And then we're going to go and we're going to look at a number of interesting things. We've got a lot of inflationary data today. We've got Eurozone GDP. We're going to be talking about some pretty shocking revelations from the SEC. Also checking in with Ripple that said actually, despite the SEC's lawsuit, they largely weren't hindered in regards to their conversations in relation to central banks and CBDCs. And then, of course, we've got an exploit with Curve Finance that we'll cover. And then we'll look at some stocks that are to come in regards to earnings. So let's start things off with the DAX. Rather unusual for a crypto channel, but this is the benefit of being a subscriber to the All in Crypto channel. We understand how to correlate markets, and we don't just look at crypto to try and help us work out where things are going. We look across the board. So this is the DAX, which is a German stock index, which is now at all-time highs. This is something that I think people are confused about, how stocks can be at all-time highs when you've got such negative headlines and certain data that would suggest bad outcomes. And I just want to stress this, that there are lots of people on Twitter, on YouTube, that compare prior sort of times in history where we've had a certain set of criteria to this one. And actually, this economic environment is probably more different than any other in history. Whether it's what we've gone through over the 2 years, whether it's the colossal debt, whether it's the kind of geopolitical stance, whatever it is. And it's kind of like a math equation or doing chemistry. If you put a different set of variables in, you're going to get a different set of results to what you've previously done. And that's kind of what I think this environment is very similar to. And actually, the DAX is at all-time highs. This is despite, again, very bad or certain areas of bad data, which is extremely interesting. If you look at the likes of the Dow Jones, get the Dow Jones up, industrial average. This is, I think, 4% off of new all-time highs. And this is a log chart. Around about 4% off all-time highs. If you look at the stock market, it's followed the plans that we set out for it brilliantly. I think actually we've got a draw on the Dow, just to go back to that quickly. Yeah, we actually see upside for this. If you look at the S&P, it's following our upside pretty beautifully. And then we've got the NASDAQ, which isn't far off target. We had things like Microsoft, which hit our target beautifully and sold off. Remember, the charts are king, ladies and gentlemen. And we've got a number of interesting stocks that we think are going to do well. You know, small cap stocks are kind of where crypto is right now. Meta's had an amazing run. FTSE's basically at all-time highs, actually putting a new high this year. Gold's around all-time highs. Crypto, though, however, to bring it back to the cryptocurrency market, is somewhat a lame horse right now. You know, it's not quite broken out of its basement. It's stage one into a stage two as an overall market, using this as a kind of index, whereas others have. Now, maybe the stock market is showing us the direction, like we use Microsoft to kind of show the direction for other stocks. Or maybe there's just a real lack of interest here. And I tend to think it's a combination of both. A lack of interest all of a sudden becomes very interesting, and it starts to really boom, certainly as Bitcoin gets over that 30K mark and we start to see news kind of correlate with it. But also, I think that money goes to where it's more safe in an uncertain environment first. It's why Bitcoin leads the market typically over altcoins when you're kind of transitioning. And actually, you can see that larger cap stocks, I think, are leading the way for smaller cap stocks, which look in a similar place to where perhaps the total market is. And let's just look at the DAX against Bitcoin, for example. So we want BTC, DAX. No, we don't want that. It looks very similar to where the S&P is. You've got this kind of resistance that you keep running into. It's marginally high. We do think, though, that the Bitcoin has broken out of its downtrend. It may just take a little bit of time to get going against the likes of the DAX. And certainly the S&P, we think it's also broken out of its downtrend. And that it will have its time to shine. We're just not quite sure that it's yet. But we do think there's a lot of comfort in the kind of environment that we're in for the stock market and how that's showing the way for Bitcoin. We've got targets, we've got macro reasons, so on and so forth. How many of you guys, and again, this is relating back to the sort of DAX and where we first started, a lot of these new highs would have been deemed impossible given where interest rates have gone. But I did this with my Patreons yesterday in our weekly meeting. Please do consider checking out the Patreon, guys. We do weekly meetings and I'm a lot more in sort of touch on a daily basis through Discord and such things. But we looked at actually over the past 40 years, what's happened with the S&P from the point of where they've started interest rates to the point of where they've stopped them in terms of hiking them. The S&P's always closed higher over the past 40 years. Now, that is something that I actually wasn't 100% savvy to, and many others weren't. So we do think that the environment's very supportive of the direction we think Bitcoin's going in. This is now a bull market, and the good news is a lot of it is yet to come. Let's look at some inflationary data. This was also interesting. Unless the SPX loses 130 points, Monday, it will achieve a 5-month winning streak. Historical win rate thereafter smiles upon the bulls. Only once was the S&P lower 9 months later since 1949. Median returns over the next 9 months are 10%. And you can see this is the data. We had Australian CPI come out, has been a bit of a bellwether for European CPI. Inflation month on month print has come down quite significantly. We're seeing deflation across the board. Eurozone CPI is as expected, slight decline. I think we actually, the bad news we had today was Italian GDP, which seems rather negative, although we had Eurozone GDP actually beat expectations. Again, not really forecasted in the headlines. Ignore the headlines, guys, and follow the charts. Let's move on to some crypto-specific news. This is in relation to the SEC and breaking. This came out today. SEC told Coinbase to delist every asset other than Bitcoin. They came back to us and they said, we believe every asset other than Bitcoin is a security. Armstrong said, and we said, well, how are you coming to that conclusion? Because that's not our interpretation of the law. And they said, we're not going to explain it to you. You need to delist every asset other than Bitcoin. Nothing short of scandalous, ladies and gentlemen, how they can make that jurisdiction and in the name of protecting investors in the cryptocurrency market is nothing short of hypocritical and comical. Gary Gensler needs to be sacked and the SEC as an organization needs to be reined in. They are directly hindering America's status as a global leader in technology. And let's go ahead and look at this clip from CoinDesk, who interviewed one of Ripple's VPs recently.
One important factor here is that, going right back to the start of when the case was brought, that was almost exactly the same time that we started out on our CBDC projects, and it was kind of a strange time. So we just had this lawsuit. We also had COVID kicking in, and despite all those things, we were able to get this business off the ground. I would tell you that outside of the US, the SEC case, had almost no impact on our ability to get conversations and projects going with central banks. I know here in the US, we focus a lot on the US, that's what you'd expect, but the reality is that the rest of the world does not see things the same way. I think it's been clear for a while that countries like the UK and Switzerland and Japan have been very clear that XRP is not a security. I think one important factor here is that, going right back to the...
Very interesting. Again, I do believe that Gensler's largely hindering America's sort of status as a global leader in tech, and that there's going to be a big shift here. We already have a Supreme Court ruling that XRP is not a security. We're going to be doing a lot more videos on XRP and XLM to come. Let's move on to the next bit of news. This is breaking, of course. Curve Finance pool exploited by over $4.7 million. It's not a surprise. This is another DeFi hack. A number of stable pools, all ETH, MS ETH, PETH using Viper 02.15 have been exploited as a result of the malfunctioning Rentrancy lock. We are assessing the situation and we'll update the community as things develop. Disgusting. This is why there needs to be regulation in certain areas, but it needs to be of a not standoffish manner and more of a manner where you look to work with the industry, not completely annihilate it because you have some sort of a zealous power trip of becoming Yellen. It's just insanity, guys. Last bit of last topic I want to share with people, of course, it is earnings season. We've got big names coming up. Again, this is going to affect the stock market, which is going to internally affect the cryptocurrency market. Crypto needs to start doing something. And we know actually historically that crypto does follow the stock market. However, in a laggard kind of fashion, you can see here that stock market really led out of the March 2020 lows. And Bitcoin was consolidating during that time period, but then caught up very swiftly. And actually, I do believe that, again, here, very similarly, I do believe that Bitcoin will outperform the stock market. Eventually, it's just going to take a little while to get going. It's very comforting that the stock market's kind of confirming our overall bias on where we think things are. So just watch out for these. I do think it's interesting. We did like the look of was it Shopify? Potentially not. Yeah, Shopify actually looks good. I'd say this is broken out now. And is in the stage 2. Come and learn about stage analysis with me. Snapchat was actually potentially a stage 2 that now looks to be back in a stage 1. So this could base out a little bit longer. What did we have? Hood, Robinhood. These look like altcoins, don't they? Very interesting. That correlation I've not seen anybody else give. This looks like it could be breaking out. They've got their earnings coming. Going to be one to watch. So I was looking at, I think it was this I was looking at earlier today. Is there any other crypto channel out there that highlights and brings all this stuff and correlates it all together as like we do? I do not believe there is. Subscribe to this channel, guys. Get this content shared around. We really appreciate everyone sharing, liking, and supporting. Roku was the other one, and then we'll leave it there. Now we've had a look at some stocks. Again, breakout, beautiful. Come back, retest, off you go. All predicted on this channel, just like the direction of the stock market, just like the direction of Bitcoin, so on and so forth, blah. Enough of the grotesque, what would the word be? Gloating. On that note, I'm going to love and leave you. Have a magic Monday, guys. We're going to be firing out content. We've got interview after interview to come out. We've got lots of content coming out about some of our favorite cryptos. And on that note, I'm going to love and leave you. Have a wonderful day, guys. See you all in the next one.